and energy after a long morning of sessions. My talk today is about how the climate variations influence human population dynamics through time and over space, across the space in China. As we all know, during the glacial period, the climate is generally colder and drier than today, with a much lower CO2 level in the atmosphere. Meanwhile, there are frequent climate fluctuations during this period, with multiple alternations between colder and warmer periods. So the past tens of thousands of years is also a critical time period for human migration across Asia. Previous numerous studies have indicated a strong link between climate variations and the patterns of human expansion. So it is important to delve into their relationships during this time period in China. So to achieve this, a key task is to reconstruct the ancient population changes. A widely used method is called the summed probability distribution of the archaeological radiocarbon dates. The basic assumption is that the temporal frequency of the dated samples from archaeological sites can reflect the relative changes in population levels. So in the right figure shows the latest radiocarbon database that has compiled about 200,000 radiocarbon dates across the globe. Here is a simple illustration of the SPD method. For each radiocarbon date, it is calibrated onto the calendar age based on the calibration curve. And because the atmospheric carbon-14 content is variable, the calibrated density distribution shifted from the original Gaussian distribution to an irregular distribution with multiple peaks and troughs. When we have many of these dates, we can add up the height of the calibrated distribution at every calendar date. And then this forms a cumulative probability distribution function, which was used as a proxy for the population changes. So previous studies have compiled the radiocarbon dates across China, as shown in the map. It includes over 4,000 dates, radiocarbon dates, from about 1,000 archaeological sites. And the later studies using this database have mainly focused on the Holocene, while my research will focus on the time period before 10,000 years ago, when the impact of agriculture is minimal. Despite the wide use SPD method, there are disputes around it for a long time, among the many limitations, a particular issue with this method is that the SPD curve mixes the chronological errors of the dates with the number of events in a given time period, and the latter is what we want. So when we directly correlate or regress the SPD curves with the independent variables, it will generate biased results. So to overcome this limitation, a new statistical model called the radiocarbon dated event count model was proposed. And it has been shown that applying either the REC method or the SPD method to exactly the same data set will generate contrasting conclusions regarding the megafaunal extinctions in North America, as presented in these two papers. So here is a simple illustration of the REC method. For each radiocarbon data, we sample one event according to the probability of its dating after calibration. So we do this for all dates, forming a sequence of counts. Then this will be one member of the REC ensemble. We repeat this sampling many times, which forms an ensemble of sequences. So as shown here. To visualize it, in the right figure, The color means that in a given time interval, in our case 100 years, how many of the REC members have one count or more counts located in this time interval. Then we need to correlate the REC ensembles against the environmental variables. Now we have to use a count-based regression model, and a widely used model is a negative binomial regression. The parameter estimation is done for every member of the REC ensemble, and this gives the beta value for each member. And all the beta values belong to the same superpopulation defined by the hyperparameter, the beta. And this is what we get in the final result. So in the left is regression equations, and here comes the covariates of the model, and they are combined linearly, and the beta values represent their effect size. For the temporal analysis, we employed both the REC method and compared it with the traditional SPD method. For the independent variables, we use the oxygen isotope from the ice core to represent temperature, and for the precipitation proxy, we use the Spatiotemporal oxygen isotopes from Chinese caves. And we also considered the taphonomic the preservation bias using the tephra proxy as proposed by the Serovale paper. So in addition to the temporal analysis, we also conducted a spatial analysis. Here we first generated the kernel density maps of the population. So this is basically a spatial interpolation of the locations of the dates. And then we use the graded climate outputs from the HAD-CM climate model, which provide transient simulation outputs during the last glacial period. And then we performed multivariate linear regression models to predict the kernel densities. So in addition to the statistical model, we also developed a process-based model. To simulate the human population densities. And this development is based on the ORCIDE land surface model. So like all other land surface models, ORCIDE simulates the energy, water, and carbon balance across the global lands. And it is also the land component of the French IPSL Earth system model. In case you are not very familiar with the land surface models, the models describe the surface using a tile approach. Within each grid cell, the areas are occupied by several plant functional types. The fractional cover of all PFT is equal to 100%. Here in our model, we have 13 plant PFTs, including different forest types and C3 and C4 grass. So previously, we included an animal model into the ORCIDE, which can simulate the herbivore population dynamics. So it simulates the daily grazing activities, the food intake and energy expenditure of the animals at daily time step. And every year, the population is updated based on the birth rate and mortality rate, which in turn is affected by the daily food availability. We also account for the feedback of the animals to the vegetation. So this model was used to explain the productivity paradox during the last glacial maximum. On top of this model, we further included the hunter-gatherers into this ecosystem model. We call it FORGE, the forager dynamics in global ecosystem model. The model structure of humans is quite similar to the herbivores, except that the humans can both gather the plant food and hunt the animals. So this model was used to simulate the contemporary hunter-gatherer distributions globally, and we find that the diet composition, so how much the meat fraction of the diet of the hunter-gatherer groups is a strong predictor of their population density. And the diet itself is influenced by the seasonality of the environment. Here is some basic assumptions of the human model. I will just skip this. And now we set up the model for the LGM conditions. Here we use the LGM climate outputs from the IPSL model as forcing the input of our model. Because the benefit of process-based models is to separate the effect of individual drivers. So we designed several experiments using both either LGM climate or the pre-industrial climate, and we tested 3 different CO2 levels because they have strong impact on the vegetation and subsequently animals and humans. So let's first look at the results of the statistical model. So the figure below is the REC ensemble derived from the radiocarbon dating in China from 50,000 years ago to 10,000 years ago. For comparison, the traditional SPD curve is also plotted as a black line. So they visually they match generally well. And in the right shows the regression coefficient of temperature, precipitation, and taphonomy proxies for the population. Both the coefficient for temperature and precipitation are significant, so they are significantly larger than 0, indicating a positive relationship between population with both temperature and precipitation during this whole period. So the taphonomic proxy is also significant, indicating that the preservation bias also contributed to this trend of the sample frequency. What is interesting is that when we separate the different time intervals from the past to more recent, we fit the temperature regression coefficient, and we find a decreasing trend from the past to the recent, especially a notable drop during the 35 to 30,000 years ago. So because this regression coefficient reflects the sensitivity of population size to temperature variations, this result indicates that the humans have been more resilient and adaptive to the temperature changes. So this is likely because of technology innovations or migrations to more suitable climate. And we also think about bold guess that this may reflect a shift in the human species, but we didn't find evidence about this argument. And then we test the traditional SPD method. So using both the original SPD curve, the red curve here, and also the 1000 bootstrap simulated SPD, which is a commonly used way to address the uncertainties of the data set. Under both cases, the correlation between the SPD curve and temperature is non-significant for the whole time period and for most of the segmented time intervals. So it demonstrates that the SPD method could have biased estimation about the relationship. For the spatial analysis, so here is the kernel density maps separated for the 4 different time periods. In the early period, the humans are mainly clustered in northern China, especially the Yellow River Basin. As the climate gets colder towards the LGM and then the post-LGM, the humans emerged in the southern China, first in the Yangtze River Basin and later in the more southern Pearl River Basin. And here is the regression coefficient in this multiple linear regression models. we considered 7 potential predictors, including the mean temperature, precipitation, their extreme values, and their seasonality, and also MPP. So this is separated for the 3 different time periods. So the precipitation seasonality consistently shows negative effect on the kernel density, indicating adverse impact of seasonality on population. For the MAT, it shows a positive effect, but the effect size increases over the 3 periods. It suggests that the populations gradually clustered to relative warmer areas as the climate progressively worsened towards the LGM, so that the temperature has become a more determinant factor for the spatial pattern of the populations. So surprisingly, the MPP does not appear to be a major factor influencing the population distribution. So in the following, let's have a quick look at the results of the process-based model. In these figures, the top left figure is the real LGM configuration, and from the left to right shows the effect of CO2, and from top to down shows the effect of the climate change. So this is the simulated biome distribution. The forests are retreated during the LGM, and the low CO2 level plays a strong role in the retreat of boreal forest in China, while for the tropical forest retreat, the climate factor is more important. The simulated NPP, the average value over China during the LGM is about half of the value during the pre-industrial period, so which is consistent with global numbers as in previous studies. But if we look at the effect of CO2 and climate, the effect of low CO2 is even larger than the effect of climate warming. Yeah, and then the result for the simulated human density. So the model simulates more population in the southern regions with milder climate. But if we compare, so from left to right, we can see that in the model, the low CO2 play a strong role to limit the human population in the northeastern China due to the adverse effect of low CO2 on vegetation. And we also find that the increased population density is not proportionate to the increases in NPP because there is a complex mechanism in our model when the grassland are replaced by forests, especially under high, increased CO2. The herbivore densities will be less over forests than on the grasslands. So this will provide less meat food for humans, and then it reduces human population density. So a summary of the study, we find significant correlations between climate and population in China during 50 to 10K, but this is not detectable using the traditional SPD method. So we find a notable declining trend in the temperature sensitivity of population size. So this suggests an increased human resilience and adaptation to the environmental stressors. So we also have spatial analysis shows the positive effect of temperature and negative effect of seasonality, while NPP does not emerge as a strong predictor. The preliminary results from our process-based Forge model shows quite complex interplay between the climate, CO2, and human and animal populations. So that's my talk. Thanks.